Hello, I'm Sophia, and welcome to What We Need to Know About Ukraine. Here, I learn about Ukrainian history, literature, and culture, and share my findings with you. Today's episode is about the fascinating Olha of Kyiv. She is a canonized saint and the ruling monarch of the Kyivan Rus that had successfully ruled the kingdom during the 10th century after the death of her husband. I will discuss her innovative governing policies and her brutal avenging of her husband. If you would like to know a bit of a background as to what is the Kyivan Rus before starting this episode, you can listen to my episode called Kyivan Rus, the Golden Age and Yaroslav the Wise. That way you can understand this episode a little bit better. Olha is the great-grandmother of Yaroslav the Wise, by the way, and is also part of the Rurikovich dynasty. And now let's go back in time to the 10th century. Little is known about Olha's life before marriage, like the year she was born, who her parents were, and the place that she was born. But it is estimated that she got married to the king, Ihor of Kyiv, at the age of 13, which was the average marrying age at the time, so nothing special there. Although during her husband's life, Olha took a considerable part in internal affairs of the kingdom, she did not have full control. That all changed after her husband's death, and surprisingly, none of the people close to her husband, those with high ranks, fought her for the throne. Olha did have a young son and was technically acting as a regent, but she truly had all the power and influence that her husband had when alive. So how did it happen that Olha, a woman, became the ruler in a society of warriors and military states? Of course, she needed to prove her worth to all the voivodes, governors, warlords, and other political and military men. She needed to make sure they knew she is a worthy ruler and respected her. Her regency could have easily been overthrown. So she showcased her power with the vengeance for her husband. Well, at least she started like that. So what happened? Why is there a need and a want for vengeance? Well, there was a tribe of early East Slavs, and they called themselves Drevlyani. They lived between the 6th and the 10th centuries. Currently, the place where they lived is called Polisia, which is modern-day Ukraine. They were subject to Kyiv and had to pay tribute, or taxes, there during the time of King Oleh Vishchi. After his death, they were conquered and had to pay tribute to one of the Scandinavian kings. When in turn he died, Olha's husband, King Ihor of Kyiv, tried once again to re-establish Kyiv's governance over the Drevlyani. When Ihor went to visit the lands that belonged to the Drevlyani in order to gather the taxes, they killed him. That was in the year 945. Olha was, for obvious reasons, unhappy about the murder of her husband and took to vengeance in 4 parts. After the Drevlyani killed Olha's husband in their capital of Iskorostyn, they decided to get Olha to marry one of their local princes. With this proposition, some of the Drevlyani came to Olha and said that they killed her husband since he was like a wolf that just stole from them, but their local ruler is a kind man and she should marry him. Olha asked them to return to their boat, with which they came, and in the morning she will call them to pay homage to them. Except, she said, when you are called to come to me, stay in your ship, and my people will carry you with their ship. They agreed, and Olha's servants carried the Drevlyani in their boat to a huge grave that was dug overnight, and Olha ordered for them to be thrown along with the boat and be buried alive. That was vengeance number 1. Next, Olha sent her messengers to the Drevlyani and asked them to send their best and most influential men her way so that she can go to Iskorostyn accompanied by them and get married to their prince. Before she would see the men the Drevlyani sent, she asked for them to take a bath in an outhouse, because yes, people took baths in the Middle Ages. Of course, her acts of vengeance did not stop there. She came to a place near Iskorostyn, where her husband was killed, under the pretense of arriving to marry the local prince of the Drevlyani. There she decided to stop by where her husband was killed, and do some pagan burial rituals, which were to have a large feast, drink, and actually play fighting games. So the Drevlani that were there ate and drank, and Olha's people waited on them. Then she ordered to kill the Drevlani, and on that day, 5,000 of them died. Well, her final act of vengeance was the occupation of the lands that the Drevlani lived on. The Kyiv army sieged Izkorostin, whose residents killed Ihor. The Drevlani defended themselves because they understood quite well that they would not be spared. This siege lasted a whole year, but the army could not capture the city. Then Olha dispatched ambassadors to the Drevlani with the following message. Do you all want to starve to death, refusing to pay tribute? Your other lands have already been taken, and people have been cultivating their fields for a long time now. To that the townspeople replied, We would be happy to pay tribute, but you are eager to take revenge for your dead husband. To which Olha replied, I already took revenge for my husband when you came to Kyiv, and for the second time and for the third time. Therefore I will no longer avenge him. But I want to take taxes from you little by little, and having reconciled with you, I will go back to Kyiv. Eagerly they asked her what she wants, for they did not have much, and she asked for 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each household, explaining her wish is a small tax, unlike the ones her husband had asked them for. In paganism, people would bring birds as sacrifices to the gods, so her request did not arouse any suspicions. Happily, they did her bidding, and Olha ordered to tie a piece of tinder to each of the bird's legs, and when it gets dark, set the tinder on fire and release the birds, who will fly back to their home and burn down the city. That is exactly what happened, and after that, the Drevlani, the ones that survived and were not taken prisoner, paid heavy taxes and were once again under Kyiv's rule. So, how do we know all of this information about her acts of vengeance, and how much of them is true? Nestor, the chronicler, wrote this account of the Kyivan Rus about 300 years after Olha's rule, so there is not much accuracy in his writings and lots of myths, but of course some things are scientifically and historically proven. For example, Izkorostin, the capital of the Drevlani, was burned down around that time. It is archaeologically proven so. There are also detailed accounts from different countries about Olha visiting their country, so it is certain that she existed and her husband was killed in this way and that she really was ruling herself. What is not certain is that she really burned down the city with the use of birds, for example. They could have been not birds, but flaming arrows. It is important to remember the times that Olha lived in, and that without this brutality, you could have expected her small kingdom getting overrun by others that have more power than her. Of course, it was small during her time, and then it became a very powerful kingdom. It is phenomenal that a woman at the time could control so much. The trickery that she is described to have used shows her a very smart woman that could lead an army. After taming the Drevlani, Queen Olha did not wage any wars, but began to restore order in the state, established tax norms, and concluded a trade agreement with the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII. She did a lot for Kyiv and the Kyivan Rus. This vengeance was just the very beginning of her solo career. One big example of a reform that Olha has implemented was a tax reform. Before that, Kings Oleg and Ihor would drive around their kingdoms and meet with the local princes in order to control their lands. A king would come with his army, be welcomed by a feast, which would last a few days, and then be given the taxes and move on to the next city. They used to ask for any amount of taxes that a city or town would give them. If they greeted the king with a big banquet, then a king would take more taxes. If he had a good welcome, he would take less taxes. It was all very personal. There was no list of cities from where they would have to collect taxes. There was no schedule for when they would have to collect these taxes, and the communication with the local people and the local ruler, which is, let's say, a modern equivalent of a governor of state or province, is crucial. This is also very time consuming, especially considered the transportation that they had, so there is little time for the king to focus on the progress of their state. That all changes with Queen Olha. She formulates the beginning of the Rus, Ruthenian that is, state. She implements the extremely important taxation system, completely changing the one that was used for ages. Olha's system that she implemented was fixed in both amounts and schedules. This let the government start growing steadily. She created a new class of people. She created the administration, people that would control the collection of taxes, the bureaucracy. New laws created as to what, when, where, how, and who would give the taxes. This created a more centralized government as well. Olha finances architecture in Kyiv and starts the Rus that will flourish under her grandson's rule, and in turn his son Yaroslav Mudry, whom I already talked about. Olha also made important connections with other countries. She traveled to Constantinople as a ruler. She had a large delegation and military with her, and she was greeted really well. It was also the first time a monarch of the Rus comes to Constantinople. And why did she go there? Well, she wanted for her son to marry one of the daughters or other extended family members of the Byzantine ruler. The Emperor of Constantinople, Constantine VII, wanted the Kyivan Rus to be its vassal, to be of lower status than Constantinople, and Olha did not like that. She wanted a more equal ground and a marriage connection. But she did, after all, get a trade agreement. After she gets back to Kyiv, she sends her diplomats to Italy and Germany, at least the kingdoms which stood on the lands of modern-day Italy and Germany. She does so to get Constantinople into some competition and more willing to work with her. I have also mentioned that Olha is a saint in both the Christian Orthodox and the Catholic churches since the 12th century. When already queen, she got baptized and became Christian. At the time, women could only have a godmother and men godfathers, and Olha's godmother was the wife of the Emperor of Constantinople, whose name was Olena. Olha herself took a Christian name Olena when she got baptized. She was the first Christian ruler of Kyiv, and having accepted Christianity, she promoted its spread in Kyivan Rus by non-violent methods. She is a Christian pioneer who helped convert her country to Christianity, and in that way prevented Ruthenians from being enslaved by other Christians, since Christians could not enslave other Christians, and everyone could enslave pagans. Olha died a natural death and died at around 75 years old. She was buried by her son in a Christian way, although her son, by belief, was pagan. It will be Olha's grandson, Volodymyr the Great, who will officially convert the country to Christianity, but she was the one who made that possible. Today you can find churches named after her and find images of Olha and the king of Kyivan Rus, Volodymyr the Great, in St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. In the image of Volodymyr the Great, in the most important basilica of the Vatican, there is a Ukrainian trezub, which is our coat of arms today, and Volodymyr the Great's royal symbol. It is not allowed in the Vatican to have other nations' symbols on display, so how did it happen that Ukraine's coat of arms is there? Olha of Kyiv is a very smart, strong, determined person. She is the first and one of the most powerful female leaders in Ukrainian history. She is also Ukraine's patron saint. Her achievements as a woman in a military world ruled by men are incredible. Olha of Kyiv was the one who set the foundation for the Kyivan Rus to develop from a small kingdom into one of the most powerful empires in all of Europe. Thank you so much for joining me today, and this is what we need to know about Ukraine this week.